欢迎收看电影娱乐报。被尊称为是诺神的国际名导克里斯夫多·诺兰又终于推出了新作品《敦刻尔克大行动》。这次是由诺兰亲自撰写剧本，描述二战初期英法与比利时40万联军被德国团团包围，受困在海滩的著名战役。当时整个英国是动员了大大小小的船只，冒着战火前往救援，但是情势险恶，原以为顶多只能营救4、5万人，没想到最后是成功救出30多万的联军，也成为扭转二战结局的关键。新片还动员了真的战斗机和战舰，以及数以千计的临时演员，加上爆破不断、逼真场面，让参与拍摄的小鲜肉演员们都惊叹不已。精彩内容，我们一起来欣赏幕后特辑吧。
What has happened is a colossal military disaster. We shall go on to the end. We shall never surrender.
The call went out. We have to go to Dunkirk. Ready on the stern line.
What are you doing? You know where we're going.
Into war, George.
I'll be useful, sir.
One of ours. He's on me.
I'm on him.
The ship's about to leave.
Down you go.
They need to send more ships. Every hour the enemy pushes closer. They've activated the civilian boats. Civilians? We need destroyers. Where are we going?
Dunkirk.
I'm not going back. If we go, they will die. You're weekend sailors, not the bloody Navy. You should be at home!
There's no hiding from this, son. We have a job to do.
Turn it around!
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall never surrender. We shall never surrender. We shall never surrender.
Where's the bloody Air Force?
Hi, we're here at the round table and we're here to talk about Dunkirk. Nailed it.
The traditional thing in Hollywood movies is to cast 28, 29-year-olds, 30-year-olds and pretend they're younger. We wanted to cast people of the right age. We wanted kids who would experience these events the way people would have at the time. And it was very important to us to find interesting, fresh faces to do them.
I think it was important to shoot on location, to give the film a perspective and to give us a perspective. I wasn't on the beach with the boys, but that must have been amazing.
I was coming out onto the beach and there was like 1,300 extras, all dressed in battle gear. There was Spitfires flying overhead, destroyers in the background. The beach was set dressed, sandbags and trucks and everything, and there was explosions going off in the sand. And it was just so real. You can never really put yourself there, but that is, I think, the closest you can come to putting yourself in that situation. And the pure panic and terror.
So vulnerable. So vulnerable. I mean, from every aspect as well. Sitting ducks on the beach, sitting ducks on the water, sitting ducks in the air. You're just so exposed. You've got nothing to shield you.
It's not, pretend there's an explosion happening over here. It's actually going on. And then I think, that just means you get natural reactions to stuff.
Yeah, any reactions you have are just a response to what's going on around you. It's just kind of honest.
I never actually felt like I was thinking about acting because everything was there for you. There was kind of no acting required in many situations with everything that was flying around your head or exploding. And then you get this bloody Spitfire going across your head and you're like, oh, OK. With Jack
Yeah, don't worry. Nearly do.
He's on me!
I was up in the air over the channel with the Spitfires. They strapped the IMAX to the wing of the plane that I was in and flew it over, swooping over the channel with a massive IMAX camera on the wing.
The thing with the IMAX is just it's so epic, and I think that's with Chris's films. He does that so well. He captures that huge, vast picture, which just sucks you in. It's like a black hole, it just pulls you in.
You wouldn't be doing the story justice if you shot it on anything else, yeah.
What's your favourite thing about working with Chris?
It's funny you asked that, Finlay. He leads by example so much. He's like the first one there, the last one to leave.
Very present.
Yeah, very hands-on.
Yeah, I was always told about, like, if you were to ever do a film, that you'd hear the directors shouting the directions from 3 miles away in a tent. But, you know, Chris is there the whole time. You see the camera there and Chris there, so...
Literally right beside it, the little monitor. Yeah.
These huge sets, and there's kind of, you know, real Spitfires and warships all around you, and all the rest of it, thousands of extras.
The ship's about to leave!
The scale of this was absolutely massive. I think the general public are in for, like, an epic suspense thriller based within the framework of historical background.
We're going to watch, like, a super intense movie.
It just doesn't give the audience time to think. You're just plunged straight into this world, and you're just kind of swept along in it. And you're just taken with you. You see this world through their eyes and ears, and that story really needs to be told.
It's a film of survival and panic. It's breathless.
I think it's going to be bloody brilliant.
You can practically see it from here. What? Home. The enemy tanks have stopped.
Why?
Why waste precious tanks when they can pick us off from the air like fish in a barrel? There are 400,000 men on this beach.
He's coming back round. He's coming back round!
Where are we going?
Dunkirk.
I'm not going back.
There's no hiding from this sun. We have a job to do.
If we go there, we'll die.
You can practically see it from here.
What?
Home.
There are 400,000 men trapped in one place, on a beach. Their backs to the sea, the enemy closing in all around them. And it's just a matter of time before they face surrender or annihilation. And the fact that this story does not end in either surrender or annihilation is what makes it one of the greatest stories in human history, and one which I've been wanting to tell for quite some time.
I'm not going back.
There's no hiding from this, son. We have a job to do.
The film is based on the evacuation of Dunkirk, where the British Army was stranded on the beach of Dunkirk.
Surrounded by the Germans, those troops are now essentially trapped here with England that way and the German army that way. The German Air Force and German tanks ready to, as one character in Christopher's screenplay says, pick them off like fish in a barrel.
There was an incredible effort by the Navy, but also civilians, to come and rescue them from that beach.
About 800 small boats came from the south coast of England, not just the Navy, but what seemed to be the whole of England.
Civilians taking small boats across these very difficult waters, knowing that they're heading into a water where they could see the smoke and fires for many, many miles. In approaching this story, eventually what I decided was important was the experience of it from the viewpoint of the people really involved with it. The soldiers on the beach, the civilians coming over in the boats to help, the Spitfire pilots in the air above. We really try and create a sensation that I would describe as virtual reality without the goggles. Part of that is finding the reality of what it was really like to be there.
欢迎继续回到电影娱乐报。第一次拍摄二战电影的导演诺兰强调，作品要兼顾娱乐，也要贴近史实。所以新片《敦刻尔克大行动》在他的坚持下，不但重回了历史地法国的敦刻尔克沙滩，还重建了当时的防波堤。拍片同时，一边要克服气候变化多端的海上气候，还要调度众多的船只和上千的临时演员以及真的战斗机。诺兰用栩栩如生的场景取代栏目拍摄，电影还找来他的御用摄影霍伊特，全程用 IMAX 拍摄而成。即使电影中的事件可能离我们很远，但导演希望透过实景拍摄，带领观众感受最接近真实战争的当下。
The beach in Dunkirk is a very singular place. And when we first were developing the project and went into pre-production, it became clear that it was going to be very difficult to replicate exactly the beach look that we needed anywhere other than Dunkirk.
To me, it's always very important to try and work with real things, real people, because I think that the effect on film is very enveloping and draws you into the story. It allows you to believe in the reality of what you're seeing.
Chris and Emma, who made the marvelous decision to go and film in Dunkirk.
With respect, with love, if you like, with honor, to come to the real place.
It couldn't be more authentic. It's not been done in a studio or on a green screen or something like that.
Well, I think at this stage everybody knows kind of Chris's aesthetic and his philosophy. He believes that the audience will react to something in a more truthful way if it happens in camera.
Which means sourcing the real airplanes, which means sourcing real battleships, putting as many extras as we can find in period costume, and letting the scene happen in front of you.
Dunkirk is a huge story, and it demanded an enormous canvas. We shot the entire film using large format film.
Doing as much in camera as we possibly could, particularly in IMAX. Audiences are really going to feel what it's like to be in that situation.
He's coming back round. He's coming back round!
The first week, really, that I came on set really made me realize the kind of magnitude of the whole operation and how huge it's all going to be.
To do justice to the epic scale of the event that was Dunkirk, you need to see it from a vantage point that perhaps only cinema can give you, which means sometimes being high in the sky, sometimes it means traveling along the beaches.
And as well as all the equipment, of course, there are thousands of extras.
Thousands, push their way on this little sliver out into the ocean and basically stood there completely vulnerable to aerial assault.
The mole was majorly significant because this is where all the destroyers pulled the majority, large numbers of the troops.
The mole is a very distinctive feature of Dunkirk, and we had to rebuild the mole to make it look a little bit more the way it was in 1940. That was a pretty huge undertaking. It's an incredible visual because it's sort of this very narrow breakwater that goes out a long way into the water.
First 2 weeks of shooting, we had huge storms, and it was wet, it was raining, it was cold, but I mean, we were shooting our best material there, you know. We were always struggling with those elements, and the tide would always come in faster than you would think.
The swing of the tide, as indeed in the original events and the story of the film, is a major, major factor because the swing of the tide is colossal at Dunkirk.
Chris and I were like, oh, let's go and shoot, let's go, let's try to shoot in this. It's a very extreme sort of extra element to have with you, and that always takes you by surprise.
We ended up on various occasions coming in the morning and finding that bits of our mole had been washed away overnight.
And we were basically rebuilding the set while we were shooting something else.
That's very much the Nolan way. We're out here, and we're out here to work. We're here to sort of live it a bit more.
Being out on the mole when it's windy and rainy and you're kind of getting lashed and battered is quite trying. In a good way, though. It's going to look amazing.
That's one of the golden rules. You just keep shooting. You don't shut down, you keep shooting.
There's certain planes that come down and fire at us. Bombs going off left, right, and center.
This thing blew up, and it's going off behind your head, and this is going off over here. And it's really, really intense.
And I think what you get in a Nolan film is a level of authenticity that the actors respond to very strongly, the crew responds to very strongly.
That becomes the key to telling the story for me, so they can believe in the experience they're seeing in a tactile sense.
Airplanes flying over, and we see, which we do in this movie, huge boats going in and out of that harbor. You know big things are afoot. He, I think, puts something into that celluloid that the audience in darkened rooms will intuit.
The coal went out. We have to go to Dunkirk. Ready on the stern line.
What are you doing? You know where we're going.
Into war, George.
We then had to deal with the issues that the water threw at us. That was an enormous challenge.
We had as many as 62 vessels on one day, with major logistical hurdles.
Safety boats, camera boats, makeup and hair. And every time that you shot in a certain direction, all those boats would have to move so that they were out of the shot. And that was an incredible thing to get a glimpse of.
Being in a boat in open sea in the channel is very challenging. There's a very sort of aggressive short waves.
Seeing Hoyte holding that camera, particularly when it was rockier and we were rocking back and forth like this, just to see them keeping the camera on a man's shoulder. I don't think that camera was ever designed to be held up.
With a great handheld cameraman like Hoyte, that is your most stable camera platform. That's your most versatile camera platform on a moving boat. In combination with having a very efficient camera boat, a catamaran with the edge arm mounted on a stabilized head that could keep pace with the other boats and stabilize above the water to different degrees, so we could either see the movement of the boat or not, or take it out as we wanted to. So we could shoot boat to boat in a very versatile way as well.
Being out on the water in the Moonstone, you're being thrown from one side to the other, people flying at you from all angles because the water's so active. That was where we did the real thing, and it's going to show in the film, you know, the authenticity of it.
We had naval destroyers, we had real little ships there, boats that had actually come across. We were shooting at the same time of year in the same place that they came to. We had rebuilt the mole, we had the damage of the town, the smoke for real, to be able to fly a real airplane rather than making a perfect CG replica. That felt quite extraordinary.
From a production point of view, it's exhilarating because you're standing there and you're looking at the thing unfold in front of you.
It becomes absolutely part of how your character develops.
When you're actually in the environment and it's happening to you.
It's very helpful to have a real Spitfire or two and a Messerschmitt and a couple of other things fly low over your boat. One of ours! And the force of that engine.
It was just insane to watch these, Spitfires feet above your head. When did you ever get to do that as a human being? And playing those situations, literally all you had to do was watch what was happening.
It's so easy and so pleasurable when there's less to try and imagine.
When you stand on a battleship, which is already crazy, and then Spitfire goes by you.
The audience will believe. I think they will just know, and then they'll feel it.
That's the reality that we want to give the audience so that they can feel that they're there. The huge challenge of the IMAX format is the size and weight of the cameras. But the reason we were shooting on IMAX film is the immersive quality of the image is second to none. So our feeling was if we could find a way to do it physically, the payoff would be well worth it.
Figuring out the engineering problems of attaching an IMAX camera to a plane.
Hoyt working with the Panavision guys and the IMAX guys, really trying to get a lens where the head of the pilot would be and look around and see what that pilot would see.
I really wanted to make that camera work as any other camera you would use. Handheld and underwater in a very sort of intuitive and impulsive way that you can possibly use a film camera. And we made it work.
It was massively important to us to do that because we really wanted to be able to get our actors up into the air. The shots in the film where you see one of the actors in a Spitfire, just beyond them, another Spitfire.
That's the single coolest thing I've ever been involved in is when you can look over and there is a Spitfire banking around next to you. We were flying over where it happened. I mean, ridiculous. It was absolutely insane.
There's really no way that you could create that in a computer.
That intimate physicality, that tiny cockpit.
He's on me!
To be in there for an hour or two. We really focused on that as being one of the most important aspects of the film. Putting the audience in that seat.
I'm on him.
Which is an extremely difficult thing to do.
You see these, amazing airplanes in beautiful natural light through the canopy of the Spitfire and the other plane in the sky, shot on IMAX entirely in camera. It's not something you've seen before.
Put yourself in a seat in an IMAX theater and you look at it, you see what it does to you, you see what it does to you emotionally, you see how appealing an image like that can be. You start to find ways to, bring it with you on the set and to work with it.
That's the more important, tonal authenticity. Put the audience right there and give them that experience.
The thing that Chris does in his movies, which I really appreciate, is that when you watch them in the cinema, you're experiencing something that you couldn't experience anywhere else.
It's a Christopher Nolan film. I mean, it's going to be exciting and it's going to be moving and entertaining. Knowing that this actually happened to people in real life makes it pretty intense. You're right there with those guys. You're right there with the kids. You ask yourself the question, what would I do?
Films need to tell very essential stories, mythical stories, an essential kind of experience.
Through the way that Chris has constructed the screenplay and is directing it, the audience gets a unique perspective that the participants don't have.
The ship's about to leave!
To see it on that big screen with a bunch of other people around them, they're going to have a really fantastic experience that they couldn't have anywhere else.
For me, Dunkirk is the ultimate sort of life or death race against time.
Every hour the enemy pushes closer.
That's what the reality of the situation was, and so we've really tried to throw the audience into that with a degree of intensity, with a respect for history, but with a sense of entertainment, with a sense of the blockbuster. We want to give people a really intense ride as they go through it, really put people there and allow them to feel what that experience would have been like.
以上就是本周新片《敦刻尔克大行动》推荐给大家喽。未来我们还会有更多的电影介绍，如果有任何建议都可以留言给我们，也请继续支持电影娱乐报喽。我们下次再见，拜拜。